Welcome, everybody, to our September edition of Time Zest Office Hours. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Seth Wilson, VP of Operations here at Time Zest, and joining me is the Impress of Client Success and the Prince of Client Experience, Craig Lamb and Joanna Stromberg. Guys, thank you very much for taking the time. Did I call you Stromberg? Stroba.
Yes,
Sorry.
Shoba.
Not sure where that one's coming from.
It's okay.
So today, along with taking your questions as we always do, any question you guys want, if it's about times, sure. But any topic, using gluten alternatives. Giving up gluten this month. If you got any questions about that, I'm like an expert on that. So just whatever questions you got, feel free to throw in the chat or the Q&A section or wherever it'll fit. Today we're talking about the life cycle of a scheduling request. Now, out of the box, TimeZest has some pretty good workflows to get that done. The stuff that we sort of seen work for everybody. But if you want to put your own personal touch on these scheduling requests, if you want the sequence to be a different amount of time, or say different things, or include messaging that's unique to your brand and your MSP. This is definitely the session for you. So we'll go over that. We'll hit your questions throughout. So feel free, if there's anything that we're talking about, we'll include you in that conversation. And if there's something else kind of completely off topic, we'll hit that at the end. So without further ado, and hoping my internet holds out, Joe
Yeah.
Stromberg, take it away.
Yeah. So I'm gonna chat a little bit about this life cycle, as I like to call it. And then Craig is gonna put into the chat for you guys some articles about the different topics that I talk about. Um, and I'm gonna share my screen and kind of walk you through TimeZest and how and where you can set up different things and how it might benefit this process, right? So let's share screen, and we're going to start off with the most basic setup here of the most basic, like what you can do to really just get it kind of set up in the most basic form is what I'm trying to say here.
It's
So
hard. It's hard when you got to share your screen and you got to vamp while you're
I,
sharing your screen.
I still cannot type and
It's a
talk at
tricky
the
thing.
at the same time. So if we're looking at my screen here, hopefully we're looking at TimeZest, and this is the dashboard, which
Yeah.
if you haven't explored the dashboard before, that's a little side note to come in here. It's a great area to troubleshoot. Because you can actually open up these scheduling requests. And so I started here for that specific reason, is I want you to be able to come in, see an appointment, and see exactly what steps TimeZest is taking, and know that you can look into that and see exactly what actions it's taking. Maybe if it's red, why is it red, right? So if you're seeing some wonkiness, you can come in here and see this life cycle of the scheduling request. Um, but for setup reasons, I always start off under integrations, and this is going to be a little bit different depending on your PSA, right? So today, in this instance, I'm using ConnectWise. Autotask only has, a specific setting for all. So you only have to set up these statuses once. ConnectWise, you have to do it for every board. So it's just a little bit different for your specific integration here. But we can come in and take a look at these boards. And this is what you'll all kind of see is where you are actually pulling the statuses from your PSA. So you are going to set these up inside Autotask or ConnectWise first, and then we'll pull them over. So there's a lot of ways to go about this, right? I have kind of over the years created my cookie cutter template for people to go off of when they're not sure exactly which direction to go. But I'll cover kind of the basics of like what my thought process is around this. So I generally recommend for best practice is having separate statuses for time zest. And the thought behind that is that when you have automation in your PSA that's emailing the customer, and we're also emailing the customer for automated follow-up or for sending them emails to confirm their appointments, there can be conflicting and noise messaging going to your customer. And we want to create a really clean experience, both for your technicians as well as for your customers. Okay, so this first one, status after creation, that can be a little confusing, but what that means is this is the status we're going to flip your ticket to once the invite has been sent to your customer using the Ask Client to Schedule button within the TimeZest pod or Insight. Okay, so this is the very first one. You don't want any automation tied to this ticket status, again, because we're going to automatically follow up with the customer. And the benefit to using our automation that we have is that there's always going to be the scheduling button right there in every email that they receive. It's a consistent experience, and you're not going to get that if you're trying to use ConnectWise or AutoTask to follow up with the customer to schedule their appointment. Status after scheduling. This is a scheduled status, right? So it is now a scheduled meeting that is assigned to one of your resources. And so we want the ticket status to update to reflect that, right? I'm kind of a stickler for making sure your ticket statuses are clean and concise and they're always up to date and that they don't sit around open forever, right? So this helps support that. You don't need any automation for the scheduled status. Again, we're going to send a confirmation email both to your technician as well as to your customer. The status after cancellation. This comes into play when your customer cancels the meeting, right? Not if your technician cancels. So if your tech cancels the meeting, we go under the assumption they know what they need to do next, what needs to happen, so they can close it or update the ticket status to support their next steps. But if your customer cancels the meeting, we want to be able to update the ticket so that you can review it, right? So we do give them a pop-up box that says, you know, why are you canceling this meeting? And we're going to push that through to the ticket. So you do want your tech or your dispatcher to go in and review the ticket and the messaging within it for next steps, whether that's to close the ticket or reach out manually, send them an email, whatever you need to do. And then the no response status, this is part of that cleanup, right? We don't want tickets just sitting out there forever. And I see MSPs handle this one of two ways. So either, again, it's a customer updated or it needs review type status where your dispatcher or your technician is going in and reviewing the ticket to see maybe why they haven't scheduled and manually reach out or close it. Or I see MSPs set up automation within ConnectWise or AutoTask to auto close the ticket. So I generally recommend like a pending closure where maybe you have your PSA sending out one more email that says, hey, we haven't heard from you. We're going to close your ticket. And then that usually brings them out of the woodworks. So before that no response goes off, though, we are going to set up reminder emails to your customer, reminding them that they still need to schedule their meeting, which is part of this life cycle. And the timing of this no response status is set up in each appointment type. So we've put a lot of functionality and features within the individual appointment types because we know each meeting type has different needs. So a 15-minute support call is going to have different needs than a QBR. And so we want to make sure that it's supporting those different needs with the options that are there. So Craig just put in an article with all of these best practice recommendations for these preset statuses. So you can go through there and see this whole spiel written out. So if there's any questions about this, please feel free to put them in the Q&A or the chat and we'll make sure to answer these along the way. Okay. After this, what I'd like to show you is we're now in appointment types. I've got this pre-pulled up, just, Murphy's Law. If you're trying to do a live demo, something's going to glitch. So I tried to set myself up for success here. So this appointment type is in the classic configuration, which is the most simplest form of our appointment types. So it's easy to come in here and kind of locate things. So what I wanted to show you is the continuation of this life cycle. So if we go into scheduling options and we scroll all the way to the bottom here, you'll see this no response time. I generally recommend a minimum of 3 or 4 days. Okay. And I know that this is a little bit more than people generally first assume, but this does count weekends and holidays. And at this time, we haven't found a way to develop around that. So my recommendation is adding a little bit more time than less. And again, we're going to send off some follow-up emails before this triggers. So we want to give a little room for that to take place. Okay, so this controls when that no response status will flip on your ticket while you're waiting for your customer to schedule. From here, we're going to go down to reminders. Now, these reminders are reminding your customer that they still need to schedule their meeting. Okay, by default, we put one at 24 hours. I always recommend having at least 2 of these. In classic configuration, you can only do up to 2, but in the workflow mode, which we're going to go review in a second, you can put as many as you want. So if you want to knock on their door every 24 hours or every 12, you can do that. Don't always recommend it, but you can do it. So here we're going to go ahead and we're going to put 2 days, and don't forget to change this over here. And then now we've built out this life cycle, right? So we're going to send a scheduling request. 24 hours later, we're going to send a reminder that they need to schedule. On day 2, we're going to send another reminder. And then on day 4, we're going to flip it to a no response status. So that is how we can go about setting up this life cycle in the most simplest form to keep your statuses up to date and try to keep your customers actually scheduling their appointments, right? From here, there's a lot more that you can do. So you may have noticed in this, I haven't discussed reminding your clients or reminding your technicians of an upcoming meeting that's already scheduled. And that's because in our default, it's not there, right? So we built out this more in-depth version, which is our workflow mode, where you can really put a lot of that functionality into play. And so I have it pre-pulled up here. So this appointment type has been already converted, and you'll see it looks a lot different. And Craig's going to continue to put articles in the chat for you. So please grab those, but you can also find them on the Help Center as well. This workflow mode, it's been around 2 years now or so, maybe more. Time flies. But we have over 50 articles on it on the Help Center regarding it. These include tutorials. So you should be able to find something that benefits you in that. I do always recommend setting up the classic configuration as much as possible before converting over. That just makes your life simpler because it will translate everything over for you. But in here, what I want to show you is when you go to the very bottom here, you can see we have these sections. So it's broken up into triggers and actions. This white space here is the trigger. And I have a trigger here of when 24 hours has elapsed without the client scheduling an appointment, we're going to send a reminder email to the customer. I also have in here this little trigger, which says, okay, but if I already manually close the ticket for some reason, just skip this action altogether, which can be very handy and isn't always a default setup. So you may want, if you convert over, to check that, right? Here is when 2 days has elapsed. We're going to send the default reminder template, okay? And then when 4 days has elapsed without the client scheduling, I've put in some others here as well. So we have, again, the skip all actions in this trigger when the associated ticket is closed. So if your tech went in, resolved it, forgot to cancel the invite that is, pinging your customer, asking them to schedule, this will make sure that they're not getting emailed again, or the ticket status isn't being reopened to the no response status, which we've set up here, that we've said, okay, after this 4 days, go ahead and update the ticket status to no response, okay? Something additional that I've put in here that's not default is you can add an internal note to the ticket when this time elapses as well. So you could do this for all of these reminders, where you could put a note in the ticket that says, hey, we flipped the status to no response because, we have smart tokens, so you could put the customer's full name hasn't scheduled their appointment, right? This is great if you want to go back and review the ticket. If they're saying, hey, we never got this handled, you can say, well, we've attempted, 3 or 4 different times. Here's the log of that. And you have that right there in your notes section of your ticket. So this is those actions we just set up in the classic configuration, now in this workflow mode. But from here, we can expand even more. So if I scroll back to the top of my workflow here, I have set up at 60 minutes before the start of an appointment. So this timing is customizable. You got a little pencil here, you can change it. So you can do multiple of these. If you want to send one out the day before, if you want to send one out 15 minutes before the meeting, whatever works best for you. Then we're going to send an email, and any invited guests an email using a template. This demo instance only had a legacy email. That's why you're seeing this error. But you're going to actually build out what this email looks like and apply it. And you get to come in here and choose which email you're sending and what it looks like, what it says. So that email is completely customizable by you, and you're just choosing when to send it to the customer, okay? We also in here have at a specific amount of time after the end of an appointment. Okay, so you can send an email after an appointment or a scheduled appointment. One thing to note here, we don't know if your tech actually attended the appointment, right? We only know that that time has elapsed that was scheduled. So just keep that in mind. Then you can send, maybe you want to send a survey or something of that sort. You can do that in that email. Okay.
Just to add, if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, our August office hours on our YouTube channel covers the email editor if you want to be able to customize those emails that go out.
Yeah, and I'll show you where that's at real quick. But that is something, we did go more in depth about. There is documentation on the Help Center. So we do kind of go through it, but we're also here as a team to help you. So if you reach out to the chat, so when you're in the app, there's the yellow chat box at the bottom right-hand corner. That goes to live chat support. If you reach out there and say, hey, I would like to set up an appointment to set up this workflow, we're happy to sit with you and help you go through that if you're running into any issues. But in email settings is where you can create a new email template and then apply it in your appointment type as I had shown, okay? Another thing that we can do which is new this year, we brought out a Teams messaging integration. So previously we had Teams meetings, so you could set up these online meetings with your customers, but then we released this second Teams integration here. And what this allows you to do is set up a bot inside your Teams system where you can then send chat messages to your technicians. So we can send a direct chat message to your tech saying, hey, don't forget you have a meeting coming up in 15 minutes. And you get smart tokens. So you get to say with what customer, for what ticket number. If there's an online meeting link, maybe you're using Zoom for the meeting, you can put that. There's a bunch of different details that you can put into that reminder that gets sent over via a chat bot to your tech. You can also set up a chat channel that maybe if you have designated dispatchers that they can watch. And that chat channel can be sent messages about when your customer schedules a meeting, when they reschedule a meeting, if they cancel a meeting. So those messages can go to a chat channel. The reminders of upcoming meetings can go directly to the technician. Okay. So that is my spiel on how you can expand beyond the life cycle of a scheduling request. I would like now to really talk through any questions that you guys have or anything like that. And then I'm happy to show you where it's at in the system. I think my screen stopped sharing there. There we
Yep.
go. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it looks like no questions from the audience. You did such a good job explaining it, Joe.
I've done it a few times.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and that is a really useful rundown. I actually kind of learned a few things throughout the process, but it is really important, right? When we look at tools like this, and how you leverage them as an MSP and differentiate yourself from other MSPs, it is really important to make sure they know they're not just getting run through a regular old ringer. That this is part of your service experience, and being able to customize that is something that we want to make sure that you have the capabilities to do. Coming up here for Times Us, we're going to be at DattoCon in Miami here in October before our next office hours. We're also going to be attending Autotask Community Live. So if you plan on being in attendance and you're an Autotask user, that's where we're going to be in October. And then obviously IT Nation Connect actually ends up being the following week. Going to be a pretty tough couple weeks for the vendors in the channel. I know there's lots of sympathy for MSP vendors. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one, guys. But yeah, that's it for this one. As always, we'll have the recording up on YouTube later if you want to share it with someone in your team. And in the meantime, thanks for being Times Us customers, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yep. And again, I just want to make sure you guys know, please reach out to the yellow chat box if you have questions. We would like to stress that we're here to help you. So,
Yep,
all
or
right.
help@timesus.com.
Yep.
Anything, this or anything else, we want to make sure that it's fully implemented for you. Don't hesitate.
Perfect. All right. Is that a wrap?
Yep, sounds
All
like
right.
it.
All
Thanks,
right. Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.